Click the button. Looks like we're live. All right. First time in a while doing this to see if I remember. Actually, not that long, but it's been a little bit. And I don't know the last time. I can't remember the last time I did a stream just sitting here talking to you guys, wearing a very comfortable hoodie and drinking a nice coffee. So, cheers and thanks for coming in and hanging out. It is a Sunday afternoon, so I would imagine you have some other options for entertainment, mainly American football, if you're into that, or just hanging out and doing nothing because it's Sunday and you have that right. But I spent the last week in Las Vegas, as you guys probably know, and I try to do this every year, or every year that we go out there, just kind of do I don't know, like a brief wrap up type of Q&A post-mortem. I have some other content pieces still coming. I think while we were out there, we shot 10 or 11 videos, which ultimately was my goal this year. I wanted to scale it back significantly from years past and go with a lighter schedule, but go more in depth with the companies that we met with, because CES had gotten to the point for me where it was so stressful meeting all of my goals and I guess requirements per like sponsorship deals and stuff, that I made a conscious effort to not do that anymore. I think taking 25 meetings in a week is just too much. It's not possible to maintain that kind of a schedule and also, not be super stressed and have the content be of the quality that I would expect of myself. So, I think that especially towards the end of the week in prior years, my content really suffered. My motivation and energy level really suffered. And I didn't want to do that anymore. So even before this year was scaled back for other reasons, I had made a decision that I was going to go with a lighter schedule. And I think taking, somewhere between 10 and 15 meetings was probably ideal. And I ended up taking, I think we had 12 meetings, 10 meetings. It's hard to, it's hard to remember exactly. Somewhere in our neighborhood, low, 10 or maybe a little bit more than 10 meetings. And it resulted in content that I was very proud of. Now, whether or not you guys enjoyed it because the motivation to watch wasn't necessarily there, I don't know. You guys, please feel free to let me know if you enjoyed the content. I think I was the only, YouTuber out there doing this, like, of any significant scale. So I know, like, all of my contemporaries didn't go. And I don't blame them. They all had their, obviously good reasons to stay home. But I had made the commitment both to myself and to Mike, the Manic Geek. Thank you very much, Mike, for coming and being my production assistant again, and to my sponsors that I was going to go. So I kept that commitment. I went to Las Vegas. I was careful with my interactions with people and trying to stay safe. Knock on wood, I haven't felt any ill effects from being out there yet. I guess time will tell on that one. But I do appreciate the companies that chose to show up, because I had gotten to a point where I was getting emails from companies who were canceling, and initially, a lot of those emails contained, we'd love to follow up with you and do like a Zoom call or a virtual press conference, or whatever, because they all have new products to show. And initially I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. And then as the, time wore on, I just stopped saying yes. Oh my God, I'm done with virtual conferences. Like, I've done too many of them. I've done too many Zoom calls over the past 2 years. It's just not what I want to be doing right now. So I started to say no to some of those. So the companies that actually made the effort to come out there, implement safety measures, and bring, minimal staff, but knowledgeable people that we can interact with, and products that are always good to have hands-on time with. I really appreciate that. And the companies that like Inwin, Gigabyte, BenQ, and a lot of other brands that you don't get a lot of interaction with, face-to-face interaction with. Otherwise, it was just really good to see people, as always. So I am very happy that I made the trip. I'm sad, I'm fine with the choice to go, as I am fine with the choice that a lot of people made to not go. So I'm not chastising anybody for going or not. I'm not chastising anybody for choosing to stay home for one reason or another. It's just everybody's own personal decision, and I'm glad that I made the choice that I did. So the reason why I titled this the CES will never be the same again is that I think that a lot of companies realize that they can now not necessarily have the expenditure of a show like CES, and that you're going to see much scaled back approaches. You're going to see a way higher rate of virtual press conferences and pre-produced content, and we have a new thing. Here's our produced and slickly edited video of that thing, including all the talking points that we want people to know, which I guess is okay. But at the same time, when I'm out there looking at these products and having hands-on, a good example is like some of the Inwin cases. They had some issues that I kind of pointed out with the product manager, and talked to them about things like airflow and things like, what do we do with all this dead space behind the motherboard? Whereas, if I'm just getting an asset, a video asset from them that just says, our case is fantastic, look at it, here it is, and it's rendered glory, I don't get the opportunity to do that. So I do hope that to some degree the whole live show, like tech conference scene doesn't just die off. I want to be able to support the people that are wanting to maintain the relationships that we've built up in the way that we've built them up. So we'll see how things go moving forward. And cost savings is a real thing. Data driven and analytics models for businesses are becoming more and more prevalent. And there's definitely going to be some CEO somewhere that looks at the books and says, why are we spending $50,000 to go to a trade show when we could do this on YouTube? So I don't necessarily agree with that sentiment, but it's going to happen. And I think what we saw when we were out there with the convention center, it was kind of half full, like there were spots for these vendors that were reserved spaces that were just empty. Like they never showed up to. There was just like a bare concrete floor with like a number on it where the whatever vendor should have been. So yeah, it was rough. It was rough in that sense. The same token, though, it was good that I didn't have to rush around. I could spend more time with the people that were actually there, and I got to have a few interactions that I wouldn't have otherwise. Like I took a meeting with a company called Okai, which is not a video that I'm going to do. I'm not going to make a dedicated video on them, but I have a lot of footage from when I went over and met with them. And they make electric scooters and electric mountain bikes and stuff like that. And they're like the OEM behind like Lime scooters, if you're familiar with them. And they're a company that had gotten my email off of, I guess, either my Twitter or my YouTube channel back page, and emailed me all kinds of like press information, and they had been doing so for a while. But leading up to CES, they sent me an email and they said, hey, do you want to meet with us? We'd love to schedule a time to talk to you about our products. And at that time, companies were kind of dropping out, and I'm like, man, if there's a company that wants to meet with me and is definitely going to be there, I'm going to meet with them. And we went over, we met with the very enthusiastic customer service reps and the people behind a lot of these products, and it was fun. And I think that's what a lot of people kind of lose sight of when it comes to shows like this, is that while we're supposed to be out there trying to gather some information, we're supposed to be having fun while doing it, and it had become such a grind that it kind of veered away from being fun. And I'm glad that we kind of took the time to bring it back to that, no matter how that was accomplished. So that's my CES experience, I guess, in a fairly small nutshell. Um, but I wanted to just, as I do, every time, kind of hang out with you guys for a little bit. There's no specific time that I, want to cut this off at, but I don't anticipate it being too long. But just answer your questions about the show. You will see 2 more content pieces coming from me this coming week, and then we get back to regular videos. So, my CES content isn't over, but I'm home, clearly. I'm in my office. I'm in a nice, giant, comfy hoodie, and I want to talk to you guys. So fire off some questions. I'm going to have a sip of coffee, and I'm going to read some comments so far, and then we'll get into it. All right, so who's here? Digibrat, Mark Wallace, Hot Wheels, Some Guy, New Diamond, Joe Schmo, Dave's Tech Way, Mark Olaf, El Pepito, Major Nads. Okay. Good to see you, Major Nads. Glad you weren't downgraded to like Ensign Nads. So Digibret says, it seems to me that CES is slowly turning into a B2B fair sale for people like Cbit did here. I don't know who Cbit is, but you're correct. There were some companies that weren't taking media requests, but still were going for strictly B2B meetings. I mean, I guess I don't want to name them, but it doesn't matter, because obviously they can do what they want. But yes, you're correct. B2B still happens at CES, which seems weird to me. I would think that companies would be more inclined to take media appointments and less inclined to do B2B stuff, because for those of you who don't know, B2B is business to business. So channel sales and stuff like that, marketing between businesses, and what can you do for me kind of thing. So I would think that a lot of that could be more easily accomplished over a virtual meeting, Zoom call, stuff like that, than product showcases and hands-on. So but then again, you don't have to have a giant display at a conference center or rent a suite at the Bellagio to do a B2B meeting. You could just do that like over lunch. So I think there's kind of a give and take there. But yes, a lot of B2B stuff was still happening at CES. Cody Sanders, Brian, how's it going? It's going all right. Doing pretty well. It's good to be home. Bill, what's up? Hello, friend. Same to you. Jeremy Shirley, what is your doctorate in? I don't have a doctorate, but it was fun to put on my name tag. So I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. It was actually funny because I was planning on just telling people that I was like, I wasn't trying to pull off like that I was a medical doctor. For those of you who don't know, I have my CES badge, and it asked me what prefix I wanted, and I put doctor. I was hoping that they were going to have an option for sir. I'd love to be knighted at some point, but they didn't. So anyway, so I put doctor, and I wasn't planning on being like, I'm a medical doctor, because that could get you in some serious trouble, I think. But I was going to be like, oh, I'm a doctor of like mathematics or something. But as we were walking down the show floor the other day, we came across this booth where there was a company who was displaying this technology where you stood in front of it, and it would like it would kind of like 3D model you, and then like you could do stuff and it would move around with you. I put a picture of that in the thumbnail for this video, and that's not technology that's really relevant to my audience, but it was interesting, and I kind of stopped and I was talking to the rep about it. And as it turns out, a lot of the technology is useful in the medical field for doing for diagnosis of various things remotely, where you could scan yourself and then the doctor will be able to take a look at whatever information they happen to need. So we're chatting about that, and at that time I wasn't thinking about what my badge said. And as she's talking to me, she's like, so for a medical doctor such as yourself, this could be really useful. And in my head, I'm like, oh shit, I'm pretending that I'm a doctor this week. This could go poorly. But I was like, mm-hmm, 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 and and then I just kind of was like, all right, well, thank you for your time. I walked away really quickly before she could really ask me anything else. So maybe that was a poor move on my part, trying to impersonate somebody, a doctor, but it wasn't. It was supposed to be all in good fun, and I don't think anybody got hurt by it. So, um, all right, Mark Olaf, you're right. Hope in the future will be sort of like in the old days, pre-C. I guess you mean pre-COVID. We need people on the floor with products and to try stuff. Yeah, absolutely. That is my hope. Um, what is the best thing you saw at CES this year? Says Dave's Tech Way. Um, so the best thing I saw. So the things that I was most excited about, the coolest things we saw weren't necessarily PC or tech related, because a lot of that comes when you're walking around on the CES floor and you just kind of see cool new products or innovations or inventions and stuff like that. Um, so the coolest thing that I saw that probably applies to you guys and to my audience is just the proliferation of high refresh rate, high resolution displays. So Samsung's 240 hertz 4K monitor, and there were almost every vendor had a 4K 144 hertz 32-inch monitor. And you have all these TVs now coming out from Samsung and LG, TCL, that are large format displays, 55 inches plus and 120 hertz plus. So it's not only the gaming PC market segment that's seeing an infusion of these high refresh rate displays. It's happening basically everywhere. And as the market becomes more saturated with these things, the prices are going to come down. That's good for not only PC gamers who want to maybe play on a giant TV in their living room, or something like that. It's also good for console gamers who obviously can take advantage of that kind of thing now also. So that is probably the most exciting thing for me, is to see the evolution of the display space, because when 4K came out, for a long time it was pretty stagnant, and you were just, if you wanted high resolution, if you wanted that 4K display, you were stuck at 60 hertz maximum with no adaptive sync, and your gaming experience was just trash. And hopefully it gets a lot better, and I'm excited to play some games on high refresh rate displays. That was probably the coolest stuff that I saw related to PCs this week. El Papito, hey Brian, your content in person was much appreciated. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, I think I was one of the only people out there doing that kind of content on PC hardware stuff. Doctor of overclocking, yeah, that could be me. Considering that I downed Steve in an overclocking competition, he had no chance. No chance. Christian Rakowski says, besides the current travel fatigue, did you find CES to be more draining or more energizing this year? Without a doubt, I found it to be more energizing, because the people, like I mentioned earlier, I was taking fewer meetings, so I was able to keep my energy level up for the entire week. And I think that Mike's here now. Mike, maybe you could chime in on this, but I think you also kind of felt that way, where there wasn't a noticeable drop off between Monday and Friday, between our energy level and our I don't know, excitement to go out and see new products and go visit vendors. Normally by the end of the week you just drag. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I can't believe I have to go out and do this for another 2 days. I'm just done. But it was nice to meet with people who were enthusiastic about being there and showing their products to us, and to not have to really be drained completely every time we took a meeting, and then had to worry about doing an edit sitting in the hallway between meetings. It was good. It was more energizing this way, I think. Um, was the self-assembly in-wind case? Does it look like it's a feasible product? It's released. It is. It is definitely a feasible product. It is out in the wild. You can go buy them. They're pretty cool, and they come in a couple different colors too. Um, one reason. So Duncan says one reason to go in person is to see monitors and TVs in 4K and 8K. Sure. I mean, you want to be seeing everything. Um, but yeah, to witness, like I did as part of the Samsung video, I just filmed a little bit standing in front of an 8K TV, just talking about 8K TVs, and it's you obviously I'm filming in 4K, and then for CES I edit and upload in 1080p, so you're talking about 1/16 the resolution, and that you're watching it in that I'm looking at it versus how I'm looking at it. And it does, I mean, again, Mike, you can chime in on this, but like 8K TVs in person are pretty amazing. So yeah, seeing that kind of stuff, getting your hands on a new mouse, getting to like look at a new case's assembly, like that's important, I think. Digibrat says, for me, the most exciting thing was Samsung's new screens and monitors, TVs. I'm probably wanting to upgrade my second 4K monitor to a newer version, as well as switching my 3-year-old 4K TV to a newer model. Yeah, so I think you're probably in the same boat as a lot of people, upgrading a TV or a monitor and whatnot, and just kind of waiting for the right product to come along. And this seems like a good time to be doing it. Jean-Paul Pittman, any accessibility tech for disabled folk on the show? So I will fully admit that that was not something that I was particularly looking for. But there are entire sections of the conference center that are dedicated to things like that. And there's absolutely new accessibility tech that's available every year and showcased every year there. I just didn't get any coverage of it. I'm sorry. All right, so let me read what Mike has to say. I really enjoyed this year's ability to focus more on the people that we visited. Felt like the interactions were more meaningful as a result of things being less packed. Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. Like, we were able to talk to people for longer lengths of time. We were able to get more information. They weren't, running from meeting to meeting. Neither were we. They didn't have like 4 or 5 different media coming through at the same time. So yeah, you got a much more personal interaction, and it was really good. Mohammed Salim says you brought it on your last video briefly, but if you had unlimited budget, what would you acquire from the CES for your dream setup? So I guess, do you mean my dream PC setup? Because honestly, I have access to a lot of hardware that I could kind of build what I want, but I guess the things that I don't have, the thing that I would want would probably be that 4K 240 hertz monitor. I don't have access to that, so I think that that would probably be it. Thomas Slackson says, "What was the coolest thing you saw at CES?" I answered that a little bit earlier. Hopefully you guys had some time to enjoy yourselves while in Vegas. Yeah, absolutely. I got some time to play some poker, like almost every night. And we had a couple of really good meals and met up with some friends. And one of the best things that I did while I was out there is I did a couple of charity things. So one video, which was the lowest viewed video of the CES videos that I've released so far, is when I gave a viewer a new graphics card and keyboard. So let me talk about that briefly. So I went out there with the intention of giving away a few things. So I brought with me a full gaming system built in the Height Revolt 3. Height was my primary sponsor, but they didn't have anything to do with this giveaway. I had that case. It was easily portable because I had a flight case for it. So I built a system in there. It wasn't like the highest end build. It was a 3600X, Ryzen 3600X, 16 gigs of RAM, a terabyte of storage, and a 980 Ti. So it was like a really beefy 1080p gaming system. And I built it, and I wanted to find a way to give that away. And I also brought with me a Radeon 6700 XT and a Corsair K100. So I was talking to Mike, and I was like, I want to find a way to give this stuff away. And my original plan was to kind of stop people on the street and interview them about, do you game? Are you a PC gamer? What kind of setup do you have? Do you need anything in particular? And just kind of angle it like I'm talking to them about hardware shortages and stuff like that. And it kind of became obvious to me as I was stressing more and more about doing this that A, that would be incredibly awkward. B, with the surge in Omicron and all this stuff, people might be super hesitant to stop and talk to a stranger on the street. And C, I wouldn't be sure that the person that I would be giving this to would even want it or not just take it to flip it. So what I came up with was the graphics card and keyboard. I would try to find a viewer, somebody who watches the channel regularly and interacts with me on Twitter, who might actually need those items. And then for the system, I would do sort of a philanthropic thing with it. So you guys will see that system video shortly. That we filmed that last week, and I feel really good about that, where that system ended up. You guys will see that. For the GPU and the keyboard, what I did was I posted on Twitter. I don't know if you guys may have seen it, but I posted on Twitter just saying, hey, who needs this? And prove to me that you need it, essentially. If you live in Las Vegas, or you can get here quickly, maybe you live in LA and you want to drive or something like that, that would be reasonable. I'm giving this away to a viewer. Let me know why you might need it. So the viewer who I ended up choosing, his name is Leo. He's Las Vegas local. He had a system that was in desperate need of an upgrade, and for a graphics card. And the reason that it needed an upgrade was not necessarily that. It was because he had some plans to replace his graphics card, but the ones that he gave away to other people. Like I think he gave one to like his brother or something, a sibling, and then he gave one to his friend. And he had fully planned on like buying something for himself, and then all of a sudden GPU prices went nuts, and then now for a couple years he's just kind of been saddled with an RX 570, which for all intents and purposes is not a terrible graphics card, but it's 5 years old at this point, something like that, and it's definitely in need of an upgrade, and the 6700 XT is for sure an upgrade to that. So in speaking with him, he seemed like a really good dude with a good story and somebody who could put this thing to use. And when I met him in person and talked to him, it was all confirmed. He was a great dude, and his story was legit. I have photos of his system and a lot of information about what he'd been doing with it, and I'm happy that it went to him. So I also retweeted some photos that he had sent me after he had installed the graphics card and put the keyboard on his desk, and just really happy to have met him and glad that we went that way versus kind of giving it to a random person. So I don't even remember what the question was there. Yeah, so that was kind of part of what I had planned into the schedule of CES. Hold on. But because we had such flexible timetables on doing everything else, I was able to make those two things happen kind of whenever would fit in, versus being like, man, if this doesn't happen within this 20-minute window, it's never going to happen. So that was good. All right, so let me read some more comments here. What were the prices on the 4K high refresh rate monitors? They varied. I think gigabytes. So these are all like 32 inches plus. Gigabytes was the cheapest. It was like $700 or $800, something like that. And then BenQ's was like 1,000 or something. I talked about that in the video. And then they did scale up from there depending on their size. Andreas says, "Hey man, thank you very much for the content from CES this year. Good balance between quantity and quality. Really appreciate you seeing you there live rather than watching virtual promos." Yeah, that was kind of the point. I'm glad you appreciate it. So I guess the haptic chair is a no. So the haptic chair, could briefly touch on that. The haptic chair, Razer's collaboration with D-Box, was interesting. I don't think that I would ever want it because it's tethered. So you need both power with not just like a battery pack or rechargeable USB, like it has a plug, and you also need USB connection. So while functionally the chair is really cool, well, I guess also I've moved on to like this is a Herman Miller now. I've moved away from gaming chairs for my everyday applications because I spend so much time here. This is just way better for my back. It's not a flex. Like, this is just medically better for you. And so I probably wouldn't want it for that reason. But also, I don't want to be tethered. I want to be able to move around. And so that's a big thing for me. It's kind of the same thing when RGB gaming chairs came out a long time ago. Well, I guess a few years ago at this point. And, you know, you have to worry about charging your chair. I'm not really down for that. You know, I don't want to have to, one less thing to have to worry about charging. I'm all about that. So, yeah, it was really cool to demo, and it works. It was like impressively mobile. That chair really threw you around a little bit when you like were driving, and that's what it's going to be good for. But for me, it wasn't something that excited me all that much. More from Andreas. I know this has been a difficult year for the channel, but making decisions like the one you did with CES show how much you care. Trust me, this is important for us, your viewers. That's why I do it, right? That's why I'm here. So thank you very much. Mike confirms the haptic chair is actually kind of sick. It's not entirely practical, but yeah, that's kind of my feelings. It's not entirely practical, but it's cool. Do you think there will be more monitors like the Samsung Odyssey Arc in the future? So the Arc was a weird one for me, mostly because it was so curved. So for those of you guys who aren't familiar with how curve ratings work, the lower the number, the higher the amount of curve you get, because the curve rating, the R rating, is radius. So if you're talking about it, and so I'll just demo this with like my hand, right? So you're talking about, you have hold on there, flat, right? Then you have like 1800 R curve, then you have a 1400 R curve, then you have a 1000 R curve is more curved. So all of Samsung's new monitors are 1000 R curves, and they're like, and with the 55-inch screen, that thing like wraps around you. It literally comes around the side of your vision because it's so large. And I don't think that that's really, it's definitely not good for what I need to do, because I can imagine first of all, a 55-inch screen wouldn't fit on this desk. Second of all, if it did, I'd have to literally move my head side to side to see things on my periphery, versus a 32-inch screen, which is not only the perfect size for a desk, but also all entirely in front of me. First of all, for gaming, doing this all the time will get you killed really quickly. Unless you're doing it for like a racing sim, I guess, which would probably be a good application for it. But also, like, it just seems impractical. So I don't know about the Arc. Sorry, Sorry, just trying to find applicable questions or comments to read. The chairs I see as a commercial tool, very immersive sims for driver's ed. I guess that would be an interesting application for it. I don't know how much they would be better than like dedicated racing sims, but they could work in that application, sure. Keith says, did Mike poop his pants? So the better question is, which day did Mike not poop his pants? There were quite a few instances of pants pooping. Yeah, you put 2 or 3 drinks in them and it's just like, you can't stop it. Hi, why will CRS never be the same? I assume you mean CES, and that's what we're talking about. Duh. Hove 201, good work on providing coverage, man. I appreciate you doing it during a time when not everybody would be comfortable doing so with the way things are. Yeah, well, that's why we went. I think maybe it had helped that I had done some traveling earlier on in this pandemic, and I was comfortable doing so, and I knew ways to stay safe and what to avoid, and I didn't shake a single hand while I was there. It was all fist bumps, if anything. So, although I did bro hug with Greg. So if I get sick, it's definitely on him. Not like I'll get sick on him. That would be interesting. Davian says, I saw your vid where you talked about the Odyssey Neo G8. Can't wait to see that one. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. And I don't know. They didn't give me price or availability on that. So it might be, it was a functional unit. Like, you know, it worked and all. It looked final. But with stuff like that, you know, we've seen in the past LG come out with some really impressive monitors that you don't see for a year and a half. So we'll see when that actually comes to market, but it's coming for sure. One of the good things about the show this year was the cheaper hotel rates, I guess. Where did you stay? So we stayed at Bally's, which we have for the past few years. And I think that in the future, I might hold off on booking until a little bit later on, because as I find every year, rates fluctuate quite a bit as we get close to the show. And I'm not talking about like a month out from the show. I'm talking about like 3 days out from the show. Because, you know, obviously companies are going to anticipate that the majority of their rooms are going to be taken up by CES attendees. And if that doesn't end up happening for whatever reason, then you have rates that will just plummet right before the show. And as it turns out, could have stayed at the Venetian for the same price as we stayed at Bally's. And the Venetian is kind of the center of everything when it comes to CES. Now, it's not center strip. And, you know, under normal circumstances, we have meetings that are in like Bellagio and Caesars, which are we're basically just directly across the street from Bally's. So Bally's is a pretty convenient location, but we'll see in the future. But we stayed at Bally's this year. Bally's is fine. It's like it's directly center strip. It's easy access to a lot of things. It's not super busy all the time. Rates are good. It's not the nicest hotel, but it's definitely not the worst. And you know, you get I think the rate that I got for the week was like $1,600 or something, like $1,700 for the week, which is fine. Maybe I missed it, but did you go by car or plane, and were the people around you relaxed? All right, I'm just going to kind of take this in my own direction. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but we both flew in. We don't live in Vegas. So I live in Maryland, for those of you guys who don't know, and Mike lives in Oregon. So, yeah, we took an airplane and we arrived in Vegas. And I guess people were relaxed. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Digibrat, he never books his hotel anymore. I just call up the hotel a couple. Oh yeah, never book online. Yeah, you could do that, but a lot of times when you have like rewards programs, like I have, so I play a good amount of cards, and the one of the rooms that I play at a lot in Maryland is a Caesars property, and Bally's is owned by Caesars. So like if I book through the Caesars app, I actually get like really good rates. So it all depends. There's different ways to get good rates for hotels in Vegas for sure. Um, Sadly, they will keep finding more variants of this virus. So yes, I don't know if you got how. I'm not a virologist, but this is how viruses work. They will mutate and change. Why do you think there's a flu shot, the different flu shot every year? The flu is a virus, influenza, it's a virus. And it changes and mutates, and you get different strains every year. And the purpose of a virus is to replicate itself, and to find a host that it can stay in and make more of itself. So this is what this virus is trying to do, and the mutations are such that it is trying to improve its chances of um, making more virus. So it's going to mutate. That's just going to happen. It's expected. This, I am very much a not. I'm very much a science guy, and all about protecting yourselves and following local rules and mandates, and keeping others safe. But to expect that putting a mask on for a year and staying inside for a bit is going to make this thing disappear is quite short-sighted and incorrect. It's going to be here. We're going to have to deal with it at some point. And vaccines are a way to do that. And, but it's not going to completely obliterate it. It's going to be here. So, yes, there will be more strains. I always tell people the story of when I saw you at a rest stop in New Jersey, even though we both lived in Maryland and never ran into you there. Yeah. I remember that. I remember you like tweeting at me or something. You got in contact with me some way about that. That was me. I am often in rest stops in New Jersey. I do travel quite a bit along the East Coast. So if you see somebody that looks like me, it might be me. Say hello. Jean Paul Pittman says, this year I'm excited by lots of products, monitors, cases, fans. Feels like the wait was worth it for creativity. Your thoughts? Well, so there wasn't, it wasn't like nothing came out last year, and I don't know if companies were necessarily saving new stuff for this CES, but I will say that I was surprised with the amount of different products that companies had to show this time around, especially given they were completely unsure of who would actually show up to see them. I was glad that, like, while Gigabyte had a smaller than normal presence at the show, they still had plenty of stuff to show off. Inwin had a bunch of new products, and it's always good to see that, like, companies are going to bring their stuff to CES regardless. All right. Oh, people talking about my take on viruses now. So I'm glad people agree. But that's just one dude's opinion, I guess. I don't know. So, what else is new with you guys? What did I miss over the past week? It's good to be home. Unfortunately, though, I came back to a bunch of snow. My car was covered in ice. It snowed twice here in Maryland while I was away. Although, the first day I got to Vegas, it was 29 degrees Fahrenheit. So that was quite unusual. But by the end of the week, it was actually really good. It then warmed up. It was like mid 60s. So it was good to be out there for a bit. But yeah, Maryland is freezing over right now. What are the plans for the channel this year? What should we expect more from you? So this year is kind of Man, I wish I could say that I could do the same things as I've been doing in past years, but it just doesn't seem to be the case. I'd like to really try to regain some viewership velocity, and I'm not entirely sure how to do that, which is kind of why I rely on you guys to give me feedback about what you like and what you don't. So, I do want to do more of that beginner series, but it wasn't really getting the view numbers that I thought it might get with like an evergreen type of content. But I think educational stuff like, gaming PCs for beginners is important to keep introducing people to this world, and having more accessible content for them like that is going to be key. So, I do want to do more of that. The next planned part of that was graphics cards. And maybe one of the reasons why I held off on doing the next part was because I wasn't sure how to approach that right now. But it is something that I want to do more of. So you'll probably see at least one or two entries into the Gaming PC Basics series. I do want to do most of my live streams not necessarily here. Not because I don't enjoy this. This is actually incredibly relaxing content to make. But I think I want to enjoy doing something while I'm also streaming. So like doing LN2 overclocking or keyboard builds or something like that, at my studio desk is probably more along the lines of what I'll be doing. So I'll be trying to throw in some of those. And to be honest, right now there's a couple of products that are right over there that I can't yet show you that I'm very excited about. So I think maybe try to get back into doing some product reviews, because I haven't really done that. I kind of moved away from that. I was doing mostly builds and stuff like that. Maybe kind of take it back a little bit old school with a mix of everything instead of just doing one thing. Because for almost a year, all I did on the channel really was builds. And while that kind of content typically performs pretty well for me, it gets boring, to be honest with you. And I want to do other things. So maybe I'll try to start mixing it up a little bit more again, doing individual product videos, how-tos and stuff like that. Man, I don't know. We'll see. All right. I always wanted to go to CES. How do you see it changing? Well, it hasn't really changed yet. But in the future, maybe there'll be more virtual stuff. I'm not sure. Is there a new computer case that interests you in terms of modding? Yeah, the Inwin cases are just like ripe for modding. The Explorer and the Air Force. Go check them out. JMacD, CES was always a TV and gadget show to me, not so much a computer, etc. show. I prefer Computex. All right, well, I mean, that's your own personal opinion, I guess. There's plenty of computer stuff at CES every year. So, I think why not both? What's your opinion on 4K displays for gaming? Visually, is it really worth it over 1440p? 1440 just seems like a sweet spot, especially 27 inches. Yeah, I like 1440p. I had a 1440p ultra wide for quite a while, but for reasons of for somebody like me who most of what I do here is edit 4K footage, having a 4K display is pretty important, and that's kind of what I've been going with now for a couple of years. And when I game on this display, this is a 4K 60 panel, but it has FreeSync. So when I game on it, it looks pretty good, but I'd rather have this form factor and resolution with a higher refresh rate. And once that comes to mass market, I think a lot of people will be talking about how good the games look, because the 4K gaming experience is really good. I always like your collabs and RC videos. Thank you very much. I enjoy making the RC videos, but viewership-wise, they just did not do it. I tried it for a bit. I think I put out a bunch, and probably not going to do more. They may have hurt more than anything else. Ever thought of doing a vlog series or maybe more collabs? I'll do more collabs as they come up. I'm always working on stuff behind the scenes. I enjoy them quite a bit, and they seem to do well. You guys like seeing that stuff, so absolutely collabs. Um, Vlogs don't really do that well on this channel. I've tried them a couple of times. Every CES, I try to shoot a vlog and end up abandoning it because I just am unsure if it's worth the effort. I know that there's definitely a subset of my audience that's very loyal and wants to see that kind of stuff, but I have to consider the effect on my channel as a whole, and vlogs just really don't do it, unfortunately. Tefan Koss says, "Hey bud, thanks for all your hard work." Cheers, you're welcome. JMacD, I know education isn't great for views, but a good series on first software installation, updates, drivers, all the painful crap after you get a PC built. Yeah, that's a really good idea, and maybe I would like end my gaming PC basics series with something like that. There are a good amount of that type of video on YouTube, but if I were to like be able to tie that kind of video into a whole series and like make a playlist out of it or something, maybe that would be something that'd be really beneficial for people. Andrew Clark, I really enjoy the LN2 stuff. Well, there will definitely be more of that. Duncany, I am hoping the ARC GPUs will be interesting and not disappointing, especially and initially for basic gaming and other basic uses. I think everybody's hoping that. We don't know yet, so hopefully we'll see soon. I anticipate, this is just me, like I'm not basing this on any information, I'm just guessing essentially, but I anticipate we will see these being demoed. Like you could go up and demo it at Computex. I don't think these are going to be released before then. Mark Olov, what were there some interesting new things on the keyboard, keycaps, and mice, or RGB and steering stuff? I'm not sure what you mean by the steering stuff. There wasn't anything new at CES this year about keyboards and keycaps. That happens more on a smaller scale, more on like the group buy scene, geek hack, stuff like that. Mike can actually help you out on that a lot more than I can. He's much more in tune to that space. So if you want to talk to him about it, you could hit him up, Mike the Manic Geek. Mark Wallace, I would love you to start the RipGN content this year. Could be a nice surprise for them too, to see that a bit like Paul when he joined the fun at the start. Yeah, I was in that too before LN2 came on the scene, and that's before I had the ability to do LN2 here. But now I do. So that's something that I will definitely be interested in doing. But usually when that happens is when there's new hardware released. So you're talking about like a new series of CPUs or a new series of GPUs. That's when that kind of content gets made. So if that happens this year with anything interesting, like AM5, maybe we can work on that for sure. Matthew Lang, catching this live. Thanks again for taking us along with you. You're welcome. Have you trialed Windows 11? My initial thoughts are fairly negative, at least from an enterprise viewpoint. Microsoft seems to be keeping their track record of good, bad OS releases. I actually haven't. I don't have Windows 11 installed on any machines right now. The problems with AMD, AMD performance on Windows 11 initially kept me from installing it on my main machine, which obviously, like, I need to prioritize stability over anything else on this machine because I'm editing on it. So I have not, and I don't know when I will. I'm sure I will, but I'm not pressed to do it at all. It doesn't seem to provide a meaningful benefit to anything that I'm really doing. The collabs are very nice and interesting to watch. I also think the comparison videos, like the one you did comparing fans from different brands, was also very interesting. Yeah, more of that to come. I don't rule out anything at this point in the channel's life. You know, I went through periods when I was just very focused on different kinds of content, and I think now it's just time to branch out. Like that kind of stuff would be great. I'd like to do more of it for sure. Um, Gavin Hill says, I've recently been interested in trying to set up a PC like a console in my living room. Hardest things are how to turn it on using a wireless controller and finding a controller friendly UI. Oh, all right. Well, I mean, you could always go with, I mean, there are wireless peripherals. Like Corsair makes a whole like couch gaming bundle that you could buy and have wireless peripherals across the room, and then use that so you don't have to have a controller friendly UI, and then just pick up your controller when you're actually gaming, if that helps you out. How about guest hosting on a weekly stream like Craft Computing or Linus or LTT? So LTT is not, that's not going to happen. They got their own ecosystem going on up there. Jeff, I could talk to you about getting on his stream if he would have me. Sure, that would be fun. I don't think that I'd want to do it like on a regular basis, but I will certainly give him a call and see if he wants, I don't know, wants me on there. But yeah, that's cool. I went on, I've been on other streams, like I did like the PC World one, and that was fun. So yeah, I'm always down if I have time for sure. Andreas Cavathis says that their case reviews are a pain to shoot, right? Um, they're not a pain to shoot, but they require a lot more testing than you might think. There are two different ways to do it, right? So you could do a case review where you take it out of the box and look at it and poke at it a little bit and talk about the build quality and how you think things are going to go. And then there's actually doing a case review, which means building a system in it, running extensive testing on it, and then collecting data and comparing it to other cases that you've done that exact same thing for, and that takes quite a while. So yes, in that sense they're kind of a pain, but they're not a pain to shoot specifically. Like B-roll of cases is actually pretty simple, but yeah, it takes a while to do the testing and scripting and stuff for sure. Jaskor, hey Brian, does the G8 require two data cables again as the early 4K 144 hertz monitors? I believe they're doing some kind of subsampling or something. It only had one cable running to it from what I saw. John, any plans for tech for travel and remote working content? Well, I did. I guess I don't know if this counts really, but I did review a couple webcams. So that's kind of remote working content. But I don't know what else I could really review that would apply specifically to that. Maybe some like travel laptops, or like smaller, lower power laptops or something, not for gaming. Um, yeah, so maybe that. Speaking of which, wait, hold on. Where is that thing? I have a laptop here. It's from Link Plus. Okay. I'm not going to take it out of here. It's still in the... I put it back in the box. I got it like right before I left for CES. So I didn't have a chance to do extensive testing on it. But it's like a super budget Windows laptop. It's like $200 or something like that. I want to talk about it in context. So what should I do with a $200 laptop? Obviously we're not gaming on it, but what other things do you want to see that it can do? I also have a couple other systems that are coming in that are like that. Same price tier, not necessarily laptops, but similar cost. So what would you want to know if it has the ability to do? Johnny Test, what was your first job? So I guess my first job would be I worked in my mom's office doing like administrative stuff like filing and stuff like that. And I think I was 15 at the time. That was my first job. Dead BC 77. Can water cooling be a pain in the ass? Yep, it can be. Water cooling is weird because, while there are certainly benefits to it, the majority of people that are doing custom liquid cooled builds are doing so for aesthetic reasons. There are performance gains to be had, absolutely, and that is a valid reason to do it. But most people who are doing it just do it for the looks, and I can't argue with that. The systems look great, but they can certainly be a pain in the ass. Alex Hott, welcome back to Maryland. What were the overall mood with the current supply chain, pandemic, and everything else from the exhibitors you met at CES? Are they hopeful things come back to normal soon? Nope, they're not. There was a lot of talk about things that weren't yet released with availability. Like, when I always ask about availability when we're talking about a product that's not yet released, and most of the time in years past, most companies with products they're showing off are like, it's coming soon, or it'll be out this month, or they give me like a date, this is releasing on February 20th. This year it was a lot of like, well, I don't know, whenever they come in, we don't know. It's unfortunate. It seems like still logistics are a huge issue right now, and people are not very optimistic about it. Brian, I think it would be cool to see you on Barnacules Weekly Tech News YouTube stream. So, we don't really know each other. Like, we know of each other. We've interacted sometimes, a couple times on Twitter, but we're not friends. Like, I'm not saying like we're not friends. I don't like him. Like, we're just not friendly. Like, I don't know the guy. So it would be weird for me to reach out to him and like, hey, let me pop on your channel. Just because we're not very familiar. Right. Retro gaming on a laptop. Oh, fun. Okay. Yeah, I could try that kind of stuff, like emulators and whatnot. Did you take some stuff along home from companies that you can show or make videos about? No, that typically doesn't happen. I guess it happened once. But typically no. What you get from companies when you go there is just like swag, like they'll give you a T-shirt or something like that. They don't typically give you products. So no, that didn't happen, unfortunately. I'd like to see those super budget laptops stripped of bloatware and battery longevity testing for a mixed Excel, Chrome, Acrobat productivity workload. Okay, that's an excellent idea. I will definitely do that. Kids remote learning. So Zoom, Office apps would be good use case for $200. Awesome. Man, I should be taking notes. Well, it's good. This is all archived, so I will go back and read this and make sure that I talk about this kind of stuff. For $200, I'd be interested in what the Wi-Fi range is like. Oh, okay. How is the screen for content consumption? Seems like that would be for decent light work, light web surfing, video consumption. Okay, awesome. Hi from Argentina. What would you consider an adequate idle temperature for a 5900X? I'm using a 240 AIO. I mean, it depends on some other factors, I guess. I mean, if you're anywhere in the 30s, you're fine. Celsius, 30 Celsius. 55 to 60 C is too hot for idle. Sebastian S. I only use glass and chrome copper tubes in my builds. Well, ain't you fancy? Okay, more budget laptop stuff. Really curious about how those budget laptops handle Netflix streaming, smooth frame rate, decent enough quality, and enough battery to last the whole movie. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, all really good ideas. I I definitely think that we could do something cool with this laptop. I will I'll do my best to answer all those questions for sure. Um, that's it. I guess we're done here, guys. We've been going for over an hour now. But like I said, I don't know, every CES I like to kind of get on here and just talk to you guys a little bit, because I know everybody always has questions about CES and what I saw, what my experience was, and I can't always convey all that information in the videos that I do. But I hope you really enjoy them, because they do take quite a bit of effort to produce. Obviously, I'm flying across the country to make them. So big shout out to Mike, the Manic Geek, for coming out there and helping out again, as always, and moderating here. And big shout out to you guys for watching. And there's 2 more videos to come for CES. So those will come out this week at some point, and then after this week, we'll get back to our regular content. And that's about it, guys. Yeah, this was a good chat. I appreciate everybody stopping in on a Sunday afternoon. Go watch some football or whatever you got going on. Yeah, thanks, and I will see you guys next time.